with another video today, and this one is about cleaning up the messy side of my desk. This fills up like this usually once or twice a week. I have to clean it up, but today we're going to deal with that, and I'm going to pull something out of the pile of stuff that I do need to fix. Is this thing. Now, this thing that doesn't sit entirely flat is a little display unit I made for an Armed Forces museum I've been volunteering for about a decade and a half. Some time ago, some people poked through the speaker grill so hard they poked the cone out of the speaker, so I replaced that, and for the short term I shoved it in with blue tack, but in my wisdom I forgot how hot it gets in there. The blue tack softened, the speaker fell out. Now, somewhere in between there as well, it stopped playing the playlist properly, which is provided on this memory stick. Now, the original concept was that I'd be able to put the playlist on a memory stick and just swap memory sticks in and out. As it turns out, everybody's been wildly happy with the playlist I originally chose, so I'm going to shift that onto the memory card that's on there, and see if I can have it all run just internally off the unit. So for the time being, what I do need to do is get to the Raspberry Pi unit in here, which is the single board computer, and I need to extract the memory card out of that and see if I can transfer the contacts onto the memory card, although I may be able to do it simply by plugging a keyboard in. I don't know. However, first thing I do know for sure that I want to do is secure this speaker somehow better than I had done before. Now, one thing I think that is a sign of the times is I put an analog volume knob on this, and people always seem to abuse it. They don't seem to understand that when the knob stops turning, stop turning it, because it ends up twisting up inside and loosening that nut. So yeah, it does get abused. So I'm going to have to take this knob off, tighten the nut up, and I might try and glue the trim pot at the back a little bit too. Now for that, I'm going to find my trusty screwdrivers. I think it's a flat blade. Should be able to flip this up in a position that we can see what's going on. Loosen the grub screw. We'll take that knob off. Okay. This is the tricky bit. I need to hold my hand in here, change the camera angle slightly, and stop it from rotating internally as I tighten the nut on the top here, which I should probably do with a socket, but that's not going to happen. Yeah, it's going to free spin in there very easily, so I think probably for lack of a lock washer in there that is tighter than it was, we will put some hot glue in there when we get to the hot glue, which is going to happen fairly soon. As you may have noticed, I cleared a bit of room by unplugging a couple of things along here, and we're going to try and seat this in roughly in position, which is going to make life a little harder than, or more difficult said than, or easier said than done. That's the phrase I'm looking for. Now the cable I used is got enough tension in it that it's holding that speaker where I don't want it to stay. Ultimately I would laser cut another gasket. I laser cut this whole unit, but I'm also kind of lazy at the moment. So I'm hoping a couple of blobs of hot glue should hold it there sufficiently, and then blue tack should make a gasket around it. I know it seems a little crafty and backyarderish, but at this point I just want this off my desk. It's been here for a couple of months. This has done tremendously well given its origins. It was a whole bunch of spare parts that I just literally had laying around, and reject timber and all sorts of stuff. And this black marking has been sliding around the table and all sorts of stuff for years. So what's going on today? This is how I do hot glue these days, because hot glue guns with the PTC thermistors in them keep dying. Okay, so let's do our trim pot first. Let's give it some retention here. Alright, things aren't totally perfect in there, but hopefully you can get a bit of an idea of where that trim pot and that speaker are situated in there. The front side of things, again, there's a little bit of blue tack showing in the side, but at the moment it's imperfect. It's just going to be what it is. I'm going to give this screen a bit of a clean up now. Alright, for the screen, we're going to use some basically, oh, that's bath and shower cleaner. Pretty much surface spray anyway. Just a little bit of that onto a rag, and we're just going to wipe this down and try my best to get it into the corners, which doesn't always work. It's just a reversing camera monitor, little LCD screen. Somewhere in here I need to find the keyed section of the shaft and tighten this up. Problem is, when I fitted a socket to this, I used an oddball size that I don't normally use, which is a pain. I really do need to upgrade that, but for now I'm not going to bother. So I've had a bit of a genius idea. I'm going to use two power input sockets. I'm going to put one parallel on this of the other socket type. Then later when I want to upgrade, it'll be an easy swap. Fortunately, the 5.5 2.1mm ones, I have a bunch of those that are hard to get out of the box. There's one of them. Right, we're going to need the soldering station over here and turn that on. Now we'll find some spare wire. Alright, soldering iron's hot, but we will want fume extraction, and we will want some solder. And we want another big blob of blue tack here to hold this down. Now, I don't recall which pin is for which. I think that's our negative and that's our positive. It is also a switched socket, so it can be a little tricky to work that out sometimes. Alright, clean our tip. Bit of solder on these two. Now we nick some stuff off a power supply. Let's do some stripping here, and I'm pretty sure that went into my keyboard. That is not exactly ideal. Well, I'll cross that bridge when we come to it, I guess. Probably want to reply to somebody's comment on YouTube, I guess. So let's see if I can solder something without my hands getting in the way. This one should be positive on the back here. This should be negative here. We will of course confirm before getting too in depth with things. We want to test polarity, so we have a plug wide in the traditional orientation here. We will go like so, and we will go like so. We will put this onto DC volts and come down a bit, plug into this and let it rip itself off the table. That's exactly what the blue tack is meant to prevent. So let's mush this in here a bit firmer. So you are meant to be positive, you are meant to be negative. Should see about 13.5 on there. The house battery is today. So we've got correct polarity. That's good. Next problem, when I did this, I was using spare parts I had laying around, and I've used a black trace and a red wire, or black trace red and a solid red wire. I'm just going to inspect the back of this. I usually use center pin as positive, and that wire looks like center pin is positive, and so I assume that red wire is positive. Now that I've got my polarity checked, I will confirm once I've got it wired up anyway. Okay, time for a dodgy splice onto the back of the existing socket. Because we're lazy today. Positive and negative is a concept I have had many arguments about, as well as anode and cathode. And people arguing about what an anode and a cathode actually is. My perspective is dealing with LEDs, in which the cathode is generally what you connect to the negative, although technically speaking a cathode is a positive terminal on a battery. But things go differently when it's in component land. Anyway, that will do. We will test our polarity, and then we will shove that back in there and hide this underneath somewhere. Okay, we're going to plug into continuity beeper section on our desk unit. I do have videos on building that, by the way. People do occasionally ask about it. Right, this is our positive terminal here, and I'm shaky today. Right. That does go to positive. Now it does, okay, so we confirmed that was positive. Does that go to the center pin? Do you go to the outer? Outer pin, no. Is the beeper still working here? Must be a switch socket thing. But yeah, it definitely doesn't go to the center pin. Ah. That's the switch socket doing its thing there. So that likely is shorting everything out. Ah. That's a complication I didn't foresee. No, it has extra there. No, this is actually a polarity thing. Okay, so if I try that polarity to the center pin, should be alright. Yes, okay, that's fine. We should be okay. Okay, now we shove this back through the hole in the back. Okay, we have ourselves a service power connection as well. Okay, what this means now is when I want to test this thing on the desk, I can plug it into my house battery supply here, plug you straight in here, and hopefully not blow a fuse. Alright, we see things firing up inside there. There is a built-in regulator, so the fact that it's not getting exactly 12 volts is perfectly fine. Today is a bad day for having multiple sclerosis and my dexterity is very poor. It comes and goes on a daily basis. Here's normally where it should play from the playlist. It may not. Would normally be playing by now. Okay, standard keyboard, here we go. Might seem like a bit of overkill. Tip you up and plug you into the spare port. Now, screen brightness and angle are a bit of an issue with all of this. Given how long it's run, it's not surprising. Let's see if it can actually read the memory stick anyway. It's finding the blue drive in here. Should be able to play some of this stuff and see what it does here. Alright. So the sound is pretty good. I'm just not going to leave it playing, so I don't want a copyright strike. Alright, so that is working pretty well. We can back up, but we needed to play that playlist, so something has changed with it, and it's the M3U that's in there. There's War and Peace, radio broadcasts, there's all.m3u is what it should try and play. I don't know why, but it stopped playing that. And I've got to find where my command is to make that work, so I'm not sure. Alright, we're booted back in. Usually within a few seconds of this point it should attempt to play the playlist. I don't know why it's not. Okay, so one thing I did do is run a disk repair on this USB drive here, which was the one that was in there. I've labeled it Blue Drive. That has been in service for probably a decade now. Reading pretty much day in, day out, 3 days a week, just the whole time. So it may be getting old, so I'm going to copy everything across to this disk and then modify the playlist to read from the new mount point that this one loads on. And I'll try and set things up so the mount point is always constant for that as well. Hopefully that will work, but we'll keep this one. I may even run a disk image on this and we'll see what happens as well. Right, I tried to adjust the lighting in some of the settings and whatnot. Haven't been too successful. I did change the profile here, or rather the skin, so that things look a little clearer. We are now running the new memory stick in here, and I went through the playlist on the memory stick and I've updated it to reference the new mounting location of the drive, and it's keeping the same mount point each time we start, and it does play from the playlist. So all I've got to do now is basically update the script I have running at boot to point to the new mount point. Alright, it's time to do a reboot, and we'll see what happens if it boots up. It turns out I didn't need to use the script method I'd used since it's done an update the skin that I've chosen, which is Confluence for Kodi on a Raspberry Pi, it has an option to run a playlist at startup. So I was able to just select the playlist. I didn't need to update a script at all. So we'll see if this works. Alright, this is where it should normally cue that playlist. Aha! It's working. Alright. Now to give you some idea, I'm ex-4th 19th Prince of Wales Light Horse Reserve. This video was played regularly by my old warrant officer, which is one of the founding members of the museum. Rather, I was with him in the 4th 19th Light Horse. But this is always the first one out of the rank that shows basically the history of the Light Horse. It's a good movie. There's a couple of variations of it. This is one of the better ones. Anyway, we're just going to turn the volume down a little bit. We're going to skip through, push the next button here, see if it works.
Almost a century since the outbreak of the First World War.
Okay, that's working well. Let's go next again. Alright. It plays 3 parts of this documentary, and then it should skip through to another one as well, which we can play according to regulations for educational purposes in the museum. Okay, let's see if pause works. Pause works. Play works. Let's go back one. Back twice to go to the previous one. See if it works. Alright, we're working. We're done. Alright, let's just set this as designed. This is only a half-watt amplifier, by the way.
Ground over which the soldiers fought and on which they died.
That's going to give us some decent volume. However, too much voltage fluctuation makes the USB drop out. So too much and it tends to stop what it's doing. Which, although it's a bit of a design fault, browning out the regulator, it does work as a bit of an anti-abuse thing. On this power button, if you hit this, it shuts off and doesn't turn back on again. It just automatically shuts off. So if the kids get too curious about it, it shuts down and doesn't turn back on. So people that come in and start tapping buttons, it just shuts down. And then when you're finished, you can just unplug it and plug it back in again to get it started. So that's that, pretty well done. We're going to tuck this away, stick it down with a little bit of blue tack to keep it out of the short circuit zone, and we can go put it back into service. But yeah, 15 years on a memory stick is not bad if you ask me. It's still got the original SD card I put in there, which I think was second hand as well. But yeah, this little SanDisk memory stick, SanDisk Cruiser. I don't even know what the date code is on that. But either way, that survived pretty well. That's going to go get up here, and I'll make a disk image of that later on. But I'm happy. It works again. It can go back to the museum.